A face from the past. The cold bit into Daniel Mercer's skin as he stepped out of Mercer Tower, the glass-clad skyscraper standing tall against the stormy Manhattan night. Rain pounded the pavement, reflecting the neon glow of passing taxis and the blur of city lights. Daniel barely noticed. His mind was still tangled in negotiations, the numbers and projections from the Watson Tech merger swimming through his thoughts. Another billion-dollar deal secured, another victory for the Mercer name. Yet, as he adjusted the cuffs of his designer coat and stepped toward his waiting black limousine, a strange emptiness clawed at him. Success felt hollow these days. Every acquisition, every headline about his wealth and power. It was as if he was chasing something just out of reach, something he had long forgotten. The storm raged on, sending icy winds slicing through the streets. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her, a shadowed figure huddled under a dimly lit storefront awning, clutching 3 small children tightly to her side. Daniel wasn't sure why he stopped. Maybe it was the sheer contrast, his world of luxury and tailored perfection colliding with the raw struggle of the woman shielding her children from the relentless downpour. Maybe it was something else, something deeper. As he took a step closer, his heartbeat quickened. The way she held herself, the way her damp, tangled curls framed her face, there was something hauntingly familiar about her. Lightning split the sky, and for the first time in 7 years, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Because the woman in rags, the woman desperately trying to keep her children warm beneath a tattered coat, was Amira, a past that never faded. For a long moment, Daniel forgot how to breathe. The noise of the city faded. The rain became distant. It was her. He would recognize those delicate features anywhere. The same almond-shaped eyes that once held fire and mischief. The lips that had whispered promises under the summer moonlight. Amira. His Amira. The woman he had searched for. The woman he had never stopped loving. But this wasn't the Amira he remembered. Gone was the bright-eyed college student who had dreamed of becoming a lawyer. Gone was the laughter that had once filled his world. She looked exhausted, worn, as if life had drained her of everything she had once been. And then the children turned. 3 pairs of wide eyes stared at him, their tiny faces mirroring hers in a way that made his knees weaken. A sick realization gripped his chest. They weren't just any children. They were hers. 7 years of silence. The rain continued its relentless assault, but Daniel barely felt it as he took a hesitant step forward. Amira. The name slipped from his lips like a prayer. She froze. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at him, her body rigid, as if she were afraid to believe he was real. Then, slowly, she turned her head toward him, her dark eyes locking onto his. Something flickered across her face. Shock, fear, something deeper. Daniel, she breathed, the name foreign on her tongue after so many years. His heart clenched. How many times had he dreamed of this moment? Of finding her again, of demanding to know why she had vanished from his life without a word. But instead of answers, all he could see was pain. He took another step forward, desperate to bridge the gap between them. Amira, what happened to you? His voice was thick, unsteady. She flinched. Her arms instinctively tightened around the children. For the first time, he noticed how thin she was, her cheekbones sharper, her hands trembling from more than just the cold. The rain had soaked through her threadbare clothes, and the children pressed against her for warmth, their small bodies shivering. Daniel's chest ached. This wasn't just a bad night. She had been suffering for a long time. Amira's voice faltered, her lips parting as if searching for words that refused to come. Then, just as quickly, her expression changed. The shock was replaced by something colder. Distance, a wall slamming shut between them. You shouldn't be here, Daniel. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet firm. Daniel blinked, stunned by the sudden shift. What? He asked, taking another step closer. Amira shook her head, clutching the children even tighter. Just walk away. Her voice was stronger now, but there was an edge of desperation in it. Forget you saw me. The words hit him like a slap. Forget. Was she serious? After all these years, after the sleepless nights, the unanswered calls, the countless times he had searched for her face in every crowd. His jaw tightened. No, he said firmly. Not this time. Amira's lips pressed into a thin line. Daniel, please. The way she said his name, pleading, broken, made something inside him crack. Tell me what happened, he demanded. His voice was rough, thick with emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Tell me where you've been. Tell me why the hell you disappeared without a word. Amira exhaled sharply, closing her eyes for a brief second. Then, she whispered something so softly he almost didn't hear it. I didn't leave you, Daniel. The truth begins to unravel. Daniel's entire body went still. A sharp gust of wind sent the rain slamming against them, but neither of them moved. He frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated, then looked down at the children. Their small hands clung to her, their wide, innocent eyes darting between their mother and the stranger before them. She swallowed hard. I was taken, she whispered. Daniel felt like the ground had vanished beneath him. His mind reeled, struggling to process her words. Taken. His voice was barely a breath. Amira's hands curled into fists at her sides. Your father. Your family. Daniel's stomach twisted. No. No, that couldn't be possible. You're lying, he whispered. Amira let out a bitter laugh, but there was no humor in it. Am I? She turned her gaze back to him, her eyes blazing now despite the cold. He came to me the night before I disappeared. Your father. He told me I was nothing, that I was ruining your future, and then, when I refused to leave you, her voice caught. He made sure I had no choice. Daniel staggered back, as if he had been physically struck. No. His father wouldn't. Would he? His hands shook. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked. Amira's expression softened, but only for a moment. I tried. Her voice was barely a whisper. I called. I wrote. But your father made sure you never got any of it. And when I had nothing left, when I was pregnant and alone, she looked down at the children. This is where I ended up. Daniel's breath came in short, ragged gasps. 7 years. 7 years of searching. 7 years of lies. And the 3 children standing before him weren't just Amira's. They were his. A lump formed in his throat. His vision blurred. His father had stolen more than just Amira. He had stolen his family. Daniel turned back to Amira, his voice rough, full of something raw and unshakable. You're coming with me. She shook her head. Daniel, it's not that simple. No, he cut her off, his tone firm. You and the kids, you're coming home with me. Because no matter what it took, no matter how deep the betrayal ran, he was never letting them go again. The past won't stay buried. A new beginning or just another nightmare. Daniel Mercer had always believed money could fix anything. From business deals gone sour to corporate rivalries, there was no problem that a well-placed check or a power move couldn't solve. But standing in front of Amira, and the 3 children huddled under the dim awning, he felt utterly powerless. How had it come to this? He could barely hear the rain now. His ears were ringing with Amira's words, each one a hammer against the foundation of everything he had believed. His father had destroyed their love, had stolen 7 years from them, had erased the woman he once saw as his forever. And now she was standing before him, not as the girl who had once dreamt of being a lawyer, but as a homeless mother, clutching her children like they were the only thing tethering her to this world. Daniel swallowed hard and forced himself to speak, his voice raw. You're coming with me. All of you. Amira's eyes flashed with hesitation. Daniel, you can't just. I can. He cut her off. And I will. He turned toward the waiting limousine, rainwater dripping from his coat. Let's go. She didn't move. A long, suffocating silence stretched between them before she let out a shaky breath. "I don't trust you," she finally whispered. The words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. A lump rose in Daniel's throat. "Then trust that I won't let my kids sleep on the street." She flinched at that, not because of the words, but because she knew they were true. A struggle between pride and desperation. Amira had never asked for pity. She had fought tooth and nail for survival, clawing her way through every hardship. And now, Daniel was offering her something she hadn't had in years: safety. But at what cost? Memories of the past clawed at her. The way Daniel had once held her, whispered about forever, promised to stand by her side. And then, nothing. Silence. Pain. She had cried until her body was empty, screamed into the night, written letters that were never answered. She had been thrown into darkness with no explanation, left to fend for herself in a world that was far crueler than she had ever imagined. And now, after all this time, Daniel was here, looking at her as if she was the one who had vanished. She glanced down at her children. Their lips were blue from the cold, their little fingers clutching at her coat. She had no choice, even if every fiber of her being screamed to run. "I'll come," she finally whispered, "but only for them." Daniel exhaled, relief washing over his face, but she held up a trembling hand. "But this doesn't mean I forgive you." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Then let me earn that." She looked away. She didn't believe he could. And some part of her was terrified that she might be wrong. Homecoming. The limousine's heated seats felt foreign against Amira's cold, rain-soaked body. The children sat close to her, their little faces pressed against her arms, as if they feared she would disappear the moment they looked away. Daniel sat across from them, watching silently. Every part of this felt surreal. Even after all these years, she was still breathtaking. Even in the oversized coat, with exhaustion lining her face, she still looked like the girl he had once given his heart to. And the children. He had children. His stomach twisted with guilt. Had he really missed this? Their first steps. Their first words. Had they ever asked about him? Had they wondered why their father wasn't there? He swallowed back the lump in his throat. "What are their names?" he asked quietly. Amira hesitated, then ran her fingers through the curls of the smallest child, a little girl no older than 3. "This is Eva." Daniel's chest tightened as he looked at the little girl's soft features. She had Amira's eyes. And these two. He glanced at the twin boys, who sat protectively on either side of their sister. Amira hesitated again, then let out a soft sigh. "Elijah," she murmured, touching the boy on the left. "And Isaiah." Daniel felt something break inside him. His children. They had been named without him. The Mercer estate. When the limousine finally pulled up to the Mercer estate, Amira's stomach twisted into knots. She knew this place all too well. Once she had been welcomed here with open arms. Until she wasn't. Until she had been erased. As the car rolled through the iron gates, she could still hear the voice of Daniel's father, cold and cruel. "You are nothing. You will leave, and you will never return." Her fingers trembled as she looked up at the massive glass mansion, looming in the night like a ghost from her past. She had sworn she would never set foot here again. But for her children, she would do anything, even face her worst nightmare. The battle begins. Daniel led them inside, the warmth of the estate washing over them like a wave. But before he could take another step, a voice cut through the air. Cold. Sharp. "What is this?" Daniel's body tensed. Amira turned. And there, standing at the top of the grand staircase, was the man she had prayed never to see again. Jonathan Mercer. Daniel's father. The man who had stolen her life. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Jonathan's eyes narrowed, his gaze flickering to the children. A muscle ticked in his jaw. "Get her out," he said coldly. Daniel's expression darkened. "No." Jonathan's hands curled into fists. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "Yes," Daniel said quietly, his voice full of something Amira had never heard before. Defiance. Jonathan took a slow step forward, his face hard as stone. This woman. This. He gestured toward Amira like she was filth. She does not belong here. Daniel clenched his fists. She belongs with me. Jonathan's gaze turned to ice. But before he could speak, Amira finally found her voice. I don't want to be here, she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her gut. But I won't let my children suffer because of you. Jonathan's lips twisted into a sneer. Your children? You mean his children. Amira's heart pounded. Jonathan took another step closer, his face unreadable. You should have stayed gone, he murmured. You don't know what you've walked into. Amira lifted her chin. No, she said. I think I do. Jonathan's gaze flickered to Daniel. And for the first time in his life, Daniel didn't back down. She's not leaving, Daniel said. His voice was deadly calm. And neither are my kids. A storm raged behind Jonathan's eyes. And then, slowly, he smiled. Then you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. And Amira knew, without a doubt. This fight was far from over. The secrets that ruined us. A dangerous game begins. Silence stretched thick in the Mercer estate. The storm outside had quieted, but inside, a different kind of storm was brewing. Jonathan Mercer stood at the top of the grand staircase, his expression a mask of cold authority. Amira could feel the weight of his gaze pressing down on her like a vice. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. If she ever faced Jonathan Mercer again, she had dreamed she'd be stronger, wealthier, untouchable. But she wasn't. She was a homeless mother with 3 children clinging to her coat, standing in a lion's den. And the lion was hungry. Jonathan's lips curled into something that almost resembled amusement. You're making a fool of yourself, Daniel. His voice was sharp, slicing through the air like a blade, dragging trash in from the streets. What do you think this is? A charity? Amira's nails dug into her palms. Trash. Even now, after all these years, he still saw her as nothing more than a nuisance to be discarded. Daniel stepped in front of her, his body tense. Watch your mouth, Dad. Jonathan let out a dry laugh. Oh, now you grow a spine. His gaze flickered to the children, his lip curling. And those are yours. Amira flinched. Her boys, Daniel's boys, straightened, standing taller, even though they were barely 7 years old. Daniel clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Yes. Jonathan studied the children for a moment, his eyes cold and calculating. Then he scoffed. I doubt it. Amira's blood ran cold. Her heart pounded as Daniel took a step forward, his voice laced with fury. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Jonathan shrugged, his expression unreadable. I mean, how do you know she wasn't sleeping around while you were off playing billionaire? The words hit Amira like a slap. Eva let out a soft whimper, burying her face against Amira's coat. Daniel's nostrils flared. Don't you dare. Oh, grow up, Daniel. Jonathan's voice was mocking. You haven't seen her in 7 years, and suddenly you think she's been sitting around pining for you. You think she didn't find comfort in another man's bed. Amira trembled, rage and humiliation twisting inside her. But before she could speak, Daniel did something that shocked everyone. He laughed. A dark, humorless laugh that sent a chill down her spine. Jonathan's smirk faltered. You know, Dad, Daniel said, stepping closer. I used to think you were the smartest man I knew. He let out a slow breath, shaking his head. But you're just a pathetic old man who can't stand the idea that I found something more valuable than money. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Watch yourself. Daniel ignored him. He turned to Amira, his gaze softer now. I don't need a test, or proof, or whatever the hell my father is suggesting. His voice lowered. I know they're mine. Amira swallowed hard, her throat tight. She wasn't used to being believed. Jonathan let out a slow exhale, shaking his head as if Daniel was a child throwing a tantrum. Fine, he said, adjusting the cuffs of his expensive suit. Do whatever you want. Daniel narrowed his eyes. That's it. Jonathan gave a slow, icy smile. Oh, you think I'm going to beg you to come to your senses? He chuckled darkly. No, Daniel. You'll figure it out soon enough. And with that, he turned on his heel and disappeared down the hall. But Amira didn't miss the way his fingers twitched, like a man barely keeping his rage in check. She knew Jonathan Mercer, and he was never one to let things go. Memories that still bleed. That night, Daniel led them to the guest wing, far away from the parts of the house Amira used to know. Everything about it screamed wealth, from the floor-to-ceiling windows to the gold-trimmed furniture. But to Amira, it felt like a cage. She sat stiffly on the edge of the enormous bed, watching as the children huddled together, exhausted from the night's events. Daniel leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You're safe now, he said quietly. Amira let out a bitter laugh. Safe. She turned to him, her voice sharper than she intended. You think just because we're in a house with heated floors and marble walls, we're safe? Daniel tensed. She stood, pacing. I know your father. He isn't just going to let this go. You just challenged him in his own home. He's going to destroy me. Daniel pushed off the doorway, stepping closer. I won't let him. She scoffed. Oh, really? Just like you didn't let him before. The words were out before she could stop them. Daniel flinched. Regret flooded her instantly. She wasn't being fair. But the pain, the betrayal, was still raw, even after all this time. Daniel ran a hand down his face, his voice quieter now. Amira, I didn't know. She turned away, staring out the window. And that's the problem, isn't it? A long silence stretched between them. Then he whispered, I never stopped looking for you. She closed her eyes. She wanted to believe that. God, she wanted to believe it so badly. But the years of loneliness, of struggling to survive, were louder than his words. She turned back to him, her voice trembling. Then tell me this, Daniel. If you never stopped looking for me, why did it take 7 years to find me? Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it, because there was no answer that would be enough. Not for her, not for the pain she had endured. A secret too dangerous to keep. Somewhere in the shadows of the Mercer estate, Jonathan Mercer poured himself a glass of whiskey, his mind whirling. Daniel thought he had won, thought he had protected her. But he didn't know the full story. Didn't know what really happened all those years ago. Jonathan smirked to himself, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Amira thought she had been hurt before. She had no idea what was coming, because there was a secret she didn't know, one that would change everything. And when the truth finally came out, Daniel Mercer would never forgive her. The truth that could destroy everything. A war brewing in the shadows. Jonathan Mercer sat in his private study, the dim glow of his whiskey glass reflecting off the mahogany desk. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a crisp stillness that clung to the city. Inside, however, a different kind of storm was gathering. The old man leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes fixed on the security monitor displaying the guest wing where Amira and her children slept. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did Daniel. Jonathan exhaled, reaching into the drawer of his desk and pulling out a manila envelope. Its edges were worn, the papers inside crinkled from the years they had sat untouched. He had kept this secret buried for too long, and now it was time to use it. With a wicked smirk, he pulled out his phone and made a call. It's time, he said, his voice calm, almost bored. Make sure the results reach him by tomorrow morning. A pause. Yes, the DNA test. I want him to see it before he gets any more ideas about playing house with that woman. He hung up. Jonathan Mercer was a patient man. And soon, his son would learn the truth. A night of unspoken words. In the guest room, Amira sat awake on the bed, staring at the moonlit skyline through the vast windows. She should have been relieved to be in a warm home, to have her children sleeping safely. But instead, she felt trapped. The past was breathing down her neck, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to crumble beneath her feet. A soft knock on the door made her flinch. Daniel. She hesitated before opening it. He stood there in a plain black t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair tousled, his expression unreadable. He looked younger like this, less like the polished billionaire and more like the boy she used to love. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. He stepped inside, glancing at the kids curled up in the massive bed. A small smile ghosted across his lips. "They look so much like you," he murmured. Amira swallowed hard. They looked like him too. She closed the door behind him, wrapping her arms around herself. "Your father won't let this go." Daniel sighed. "I know." She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "He destroyed my life once, Daniel. He'll do it again." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Not this time." She let out a hollow laugh. "What makes you so sure?" "Because I'm not the same person I was back then." His gaze was steady. "I won't let him control me. Or you." Her heart clenched. She wanted to believe him. But she had learned the hard way that love wasn't enough. She turned away. "You don't know what he's capable of." A pause. Then softly. "Then tell me." Amira's breath hitched. "Tell him. Tell him the truth about what happened 7 years ago. About the threats, the betrayal, the night she was forced to disappear." She opened her mouth. And then, a loud crash. The sound of glass shattering. Amira spun, heart hammering. Daniel was already moving, sprinting toward the door. In the distance, a child's scream. Ava. An unforgivable sin. Daniel burst into the children's room, his pulse roaring in his ears. Ava stood on the bed, crying. Across the room, one of the glass lamps lay shattered on the floor, the remains of a brick in the middle of it. Amira stumbled in behind him, her breath coming in gasps. And then she saw the note. A single white envelope sitting on the dresser. Daniel snatched it up, tearing it open. His eyes scanned the paper, his face darkening with every word. "Stay away from her, or you'll regret it." No signature, no explanation. But they both knew who it was from. Jonathan Mercer didn't issue threats. He made promises. Amira felt her knees go weak. Daniel crushed the note in his fist. "I'm done playing nice," he growled. His father wanted a war. Then he'd get one. A truth too painful to face. By morning, Daniel was already making calls. Lawyers, security teams, investigators. He wasn't going to let his father bully his family out of his life again. But then, a knock at the door. A man in a black suit handed him an envelope. "From Mr. Mercer," he said before walking away. Daniel tore it open, expecting another threat. But what he found was much worse. Inside was a paternity test. And in bold, unmistakable letters, "Daniel Mercer is not the biological father." The paper slipped from his fingers. No, this had to be a lie. His father was trying to manipulate him. He had to be. He stormed into the guest room, where Amira was tucking the boys into their coats. "Tell me the truth," he said, his voice shaking. She turned, brows furrowing. "What?" He shoved the paper at her. "Is this real?" Amira's face drained of color. Her lips parted, but no words came out. And that was enough. That hesitation, that silence. It was enough. Daniel stumbled back, feeling like he had been punched in the gut. Amira reached for him. "Daniel, I..." But he pulled away. The pain in his chest was unbearable. He had fought for her, to fight his father, risked everything. And all along, she had been keeping secrets too. A choice that changes everything. Jonathan Mercer watched from the shadows as Daniel stormed out of the estate. A slow, satisfied smile stretched across his lips. The boy had always been too emotional, too easy to manipulate. He had warned Daniel about Amira. And now He had given his son the final push to walk away. Jonathan turned back to his desk, pouring himself another glass of whiskey. The game was over, and he had won. Shattered trust, hidden truths, and an unforgivable betrayal. A storm within. Daniel drove blindly through the city streets, his grip tight on the steering wheel. His mind was a chaotic storm of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. The DNA test. The evidence was right there, in black and white. The triplets weren't his. His father had been right. Amira had lied to him. He had risked everything. Asterisk stood against his father, welcomed her back into his life, and promised to protect her. Asterisk only to find out that she had been keeping secrets from him all along. He pulled into the underground garage of his penthouse, barely remembering the drive. The moment he stepped into his home, he threw his keys on the counter and poured himself a drink. The burn of whiskey did nothing to drown out the echo of her silence. Why hadn't she denied it? If the test was wrong, if it was a trick from his father, she would have said something. She would have fought for him. But she hadn't. And that silence had been the sharpest knife of all. The past never stays buried. Hours passed, but sleep never came. At 3 a.m., Daniel's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He ignored it. Seconds later, another buzz. Then another. Something felt off. With a groan, he grabbed his phone and answered. A muffled voice came through. Mr. Mercer, who is this? You don't know me, but I have information about Amira. About what really happened 7 years ago. Daniel froze. His heart pounded in his chest. Who are you? Someone who worked for your father. Someone who saw what he did to her. Daniel went completely still. His father. What was this man talking about? You need to know the truth, the voice continued. Meet me at East River Pier. 30 minutes. Come alone. The call ended. For a long moment, Daniel just stood there. And then, without hesitation, he grabbed his coat and keys. A stranger in the dark. The East River Pier was eerily quiet. The water lapped against the wooden docks, the city lights reflecting off the surface. Daniel stepped out of his car, scanning the shadows. Then, footsteps. A man emerged from the darkness, a hood pulled low over his face. Daniel Mercer. That depends. Do you have something worth my time? Daniel's voice was cold, sharp. The man hesitated, then pulled out a small tattered notebook. Daniel's stomach twisted. It was Amira's handwriting. The man exhaled. Your father. He made sure you never found out the truth. Daniel's fists clenched. What truth? The man flipped the pages, stopping on one. He handed it to Daniel. And as Daniel read the words, his entire world came crashing down. 7 years ago, the truth Daniel never knew. Amira sat in a cold office, her hands trembling. Across from her sat Jonathan Mercer. You will leave this city, he had said, his voice like ice, and you will never speak to my son again. Amira's chest tightened. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Jonathan slid a file across the desk. She hesitated before opening it. The moment her eyes scanned the photos inside, her breath hitched. Surveillance photos of her mother. One of her at work. One of her walking alone at night. One of her unlocking the door to their small apartment. A cold chill ran down Amira's spine. Jonathan's voice was low, dangerous. It would be a shame if anything happened to your mother. Accidents can be unpredictable. Amira gasped. Her blood turned to ice. This is a warning, Jonathan continued. Leave Daniel, and do it in a way that ensures he will never look for you. Tears filled Amira's eyes. You're a monster. Jonathan leaned back, unfazed. No, Miss Carter. I'm a businessman, and I don't let distractions ruin my son's future. Amira's hands trembled as she reached for her stomach. She had just found out she was pregnant, and now she had to make an impossible choice. If she stayed, her mother's life was at risk. If she left, Daniel would never know the truth. With a shattered heart, she made her decision. She vanished. And when Jonathan Mercer found out she was pregnant, he made sure the DNA test results would never match. The weight of a lie. Daniel stared at the notebook, his hands shaking. His father had forced Amira out of his life, had threatened her, had faked the DNA test, and she had never told him. The weight of the truth crushed him. All these years, he had blamed her. All these years, he had thought she betrayed him, when in reality, he had abandoned her. She had been alone, homeless, raising their children with no support, and he had been living in luxury, oblivious. His stomach turned. His father had won. Until now. Daniel's jaw clenched. Jonathan Mercer had made one fatal mistake. He had underestimated how much Daniel loved Amira. And now he was going to burn everything his father built to the ground. Amira's breaking point. Back at the Mercer estate, Amira sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the clock. It was 4 a.m. Daniel hadn't come back, and she had no idea if she would ever see him again. Her hands shook. She had tried to protect him from the truth. But now she realized hiding the truth had only hurt them more. She should have told him. She should have fought harder. And now she might have lost him forever. A soft cry came from the bed. One of the boys stirred in his sleep. Amira wiped her tears, moving to sit beside him. She had to be strong for them, no matter what happened next. Even if Daniel never forgave her, even if Jonathan Mercer made her life hell again. She had survived before. She would survive again. But as she sat in the dark, one thought haunted her. Had she already lost the only man she had ever loved?